Hello, everybody. I'm Claire Bueno, and I'm your moderator for this evening's Modern Love Q&A. Day 4, I believe we're at, Simon.
Yes.
We have Simon, director, producer, Simon Aitken, Antonia, who's one of the writers for a few of the storylines, Matt, an actor, and Leila, an actress. And we do also we've got Ben, haven't we? He'll be joining us a little later on. He's got a few technical difficulties, but he'll be joining us in a minute. Anybody that's tuned in and watching us live, we are very happy to take your questions. I've got my eye on the ball. So leave your questions in the comments and I will happily feed them through to our lovely panelists this evening. So are you all excited to be here? I'm gonna actually pick on Matt for a change because Simon normally kicks it off.
I'm very excited. It's nice to be out of the house.
And Antonia, how are you feeling? Are you happy to be back and talking about modern love?
Yeah.
So Simon, gosh, I'm at a loss where to start because we've had so many beginnings this week, haven't we?
Well, I like it when
what
you
have
ask
I asked you? What would you like me to ask you?
Well, I always like the question about where the idea for the film comes, because I can then sort of keep working on it, so each time I say it gets better.
Well, we'll start with that because I think it's always nice for the other panelists to know, just in case they don't actually know the genesis of the story. So modern love, contemporary love story, what made you want to make it?
Okay, well, funny enough, it was at Brainhound, one of the screenings. Excuse me 1 second.
Yeah, no, you can't carry on. And I want you to, I want you to mention. I'll take a round of applause.
I've got the right link now.
Yeah.
How unprofessional of me. Sorry.
No, not at all. We can't help it. I think the nature of the beast with all of these kind of internet, I don't know what you want to call it, sessions.
I know what I'd like to call it, but I won't.
Yeah. Actually, Simon said he doesn't mind swearing, so that's all right. But I think it's the nature of the beast that we all have troubles with connectivity at some point, so you're to be forgiven. So welcome.
Okay, I'll start again.
Yes, Simon, what made you want to make Modern Love?
Okay, so it was a Brainhound screening in Crouch End when me and Ben, I think we had shown one of our films that night, and we met this French actress called Aurélie, who she complained there was never enough roles for French actresses, and we decided to sort of come up with a role to, that Ben could be in, Aurélie could be in, we could use French. I always wanted to do a story in a different language. And so, me and Ben came up with the idea. Ben went and wrote it. We filmed it over a long weekend, got it made, got it out there 2012. It got a really good response from everybody. And of course, when we showed it, people would always come up to us and say, "Oh, well, I have this story and I have that story. It just reminds me of when this happened to me." And from there, it kind of blossomed into all these different stories. So the next story I made was Digital Romance, which, funny enough, originally was going to be called Modern Love. But I thought, actually, that title is better to, for the whole film instead of just the one story. And just sort of we went from there, and and here we are.
And I should state that it's Ben Green, not Ben Shockley, that you wrote.
That's correct. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, just in case anyone was wondering. Benjamin.
Benjamin, as Jason calls him, yes.
So Antonia, if like Simon's got this idea and he's written this kind of story, how did you then or how did Simon rope you in to write a few of the stories?
You were struggling for ideas. You didn't want to repeat yourself on them.
Yeah.
And I came up with some suggestions, and we're a bit ambitious. And then, we're to work around that. And I already knew Matt, and it's probably the first thing I wrote with someone in mind. Not that you're a bastard or anything, Matt. But when I was writing, I could sort of like visualize you saying it and your mannerisms. Because
That always helps. It helps. It helps when you come to speak the lines as well. If somebody's thinking of you, because you hopefully, if it all works together, it's all easy to write and then easy to do.
Yeah.
And it felt very smooth, very, we weren't delayed or anything by any kind of script nightmares or needing anything changing. It did flow very nicely.
Well,
I didn't know you had me in mind when you wrote it.
That's what I was going to say.
I don't know if I met you while I was writing it or I was thinking of writing it.
I think you'd met Matt beforehand.
No, I think I don't know.
I should say for this, I used to host the Brainhound film night that Simon was just talking about, and I did come across as a dickhead in those very, very much. That's very much part of my. I like to think it's part of my act.
Oh, you met Matt my birthday.
No, but I met him before then. I met him a few other times.
Yeah.
Because you sort of I think you suggested Matt because you wanted to put him into the film.
Yes.
And I was like, I've met him, so I know some of the things he's done with Mark.
Yeah.
And I think quite a lot of your things, I can't even remember the names of them now.
So a lot of the Brainhound stuff. I have a particular attitude in, and it works well for this.
You do seem like you're the news.
Actually, is this the first time that you guys are actually talking about that particular storyline? Out of interest,
I think you spoke to
Matt.
I mean, obviously Simon spoke to Matt, but I wondered since you actually wrote the story, is this the first time you've seen Matt to actually sort of talk about it and flesh it out? Really,
I think I've met him a few times because I apologised to you about slap. Just a lot. I think we've been out somewhere and I've seen you and we talked about it. And I think was it after you had your first daughter, your first child?
No, that was a couple of weeks after we shot the scene, because on the day that I arrived for day one of the shoot, Simon presented me with the contract for the film, and I said, I can't sign this because I might have to leave because my child is about to be born. So I couldn't give you the contract for the film until we'd finished the filming, and I was happy to sign it, but I couldn't put myself in a contractual bind because I knew I might have to run off to hospital at any point. Fortunately, I didn't. So our first child was born a few weeks later.
Oh. And Leila, your story is a very sort of contemporary love story, isn't it? Really, explain a little bit more about the context of what happens within your particular storyline.
So I go on a first date with somebody that I've literally just met online. So they've met, we're meeting up for the first time. In my head, it was her first ever date. That's something I just added to the backstory. Yeah, so they've met, for meeting up, their first ever date, and then he then calls her afterwards and gives her a little tour of London, which is quite cute, and I think it's quite relevant as well.
And Simon, what inspired you to write that story?
Well, it was a story of a friend of mine who he was, doing online dating, but it was long distance. So the girl he was dating was, in another country, and he'd do stuff like that where he'd, show him, oh look, this is London and all this kind of stuff. And her main worry was because their relationship had been virtual you know, they had never met in the flesh, you know, would they be able to, you know, actually communicate properly, freely, you know, without computers around? And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting, because, you know, most people don't think that way. Most people are like, well, you know, you do the online dating bit and then you go, oh, I want to meet.
Yeah.
In his case, he'd probably had to jump on a plane and fly all the way over there. But I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. And what would happen if you were that kind of, you know, shy person, you know, that, you know, because online you can have like a different persona, you know, especially like things like Facebook and Twitter. You can pretend to be somebody you're not. And, you know, to actually meet in real life, you know, that illusion can be shattered. And so I thought, you know, it's, you know, what would be the solution to this problem? And I thought, oh, you know, maybe if they have their laptops with them or their iPads and just carry on that way, even though they're in the same room. And no, it worked out well. And the, you know, whole idea of shooting it silently as well, when it's a story about communication, I thought was quite intriguing as well.
It's kind of ironic. And was that interesting for you then, as an actress, having to convey sentiment without using words? That's our default way of communicating. So to have to use your body language and expression more, was that something that also kind of enticed you to want to do it?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, because it's something I'd never done before. And when Simon first said about it, I was like, oh yeah, no, that sounds really good. That sounds like a good challenge. But then, like, come kind of like the day of filming, I was a little bit like, right, how do we do this? Like, how do you, like, what I kind of did was I had a dialogue in my head. So like, obviously I couldn't, it was completely silent. So what I just did is I spoke to myself in my head.
So did you have a script for that, or did you kind of make that yourself?
No, like, I think the script Simon gave me, it was literally just kind of a breakdown of what was going to happen in the scene.
Right. So it was just a screenplay of a silent film. Yeah.
And then when we got there, it was kind of, okay, we're going to do this shot, that shot, this one. But yeah, no, I literally just kind of like, I wrote a little script in my head.
I think to make it believable, you have to do that. I think that's a really good way of navigating a scene with no dialogue.
I just didn't know like how else like I could kind of convey the emotion without. I'm quite a talkative person, so silence for me is quite an alien concept. So for me, it was just kind of like, okay, well, how do I get myself into any emotional state? Well, I talk. So then I was like, okay, well, why don't we just try like talking in my head? And I remember like a couple of days beforehand, I actually stood in front of my mirror and started talking to myself just to see. I was like, can this work? Is this going to work, or is this going to just look daft? But yeah,
I think as well, when you're sort of meeting up with somebody for a date, you're nervous. That I don't know about everybody else, but me, I go into talking overdrive, and so it's an interesting take where you're dealing with two shy people who actually find it easier to communicate through a screen. I mean, if you see a lot of, you know, millennials there, everybody's looking at their phone. They're not really verbally communicating, are they?
Yeah, I saw I think it was on TikTok, there was a video, and it was someone said to a millennial, what's the hardest thing about dating? And the response was, you have to go outside and actually talk to people. And I was like, no, that's actually true, because literally they're always constantly kind of, they're glued to their phones, and everything is you know, all their communication is via a piece of technology. But whenever I go on dates, I get so nervous. I'm really good at working myself up, and I feel like to an extent, sometimes I have to pre-warn people and be like, I'm really nervous, so I'm just gonna talk. And I can talk a lot. And then I think,
sorry, no, carry on.
No, I was just like, when I kind of like get a little bit comfortable and I've kind of relaxed a bit, they're always like, you really do talk a lot, don't you? And I'm like, I'm like, maybe next day I'll just like bust out my phone and be like, so want to carry on?
And Ben, your character communication is certainly not a problem. For the London cabbie, I think it's fair to say they're often like counsellors, aren't they?
Yes, but my character Derek, I saw as a bit of a love guru. Probably most taxi drivers would say they are, but yeah, it was just, I guess, striking up a conversation like cabbies do, and then gaining information from Paul's character, and then kind of giving him advice, really, I suppose. Talking about music and about his favourite song, which is Modern Love, obviously, and him umming and ahhing about whether he should write this song for his girl. And I basically encourage him to do exactly that.
Antonia, can you share with us a little bit more of the basis behind Taxi Driver?
Well, everyone loves taxi drivers when you get in there and they're just so chatty. When you get in there, when you're drunk or sober, they're your like best friend for that journey sometimes, and you learn so much about them, and they learn so much about you, or you learn nothing about them and they learn everything about you. And it's like a weird customer service that they're not taught to do, but their job is so monotonous. So I kind of looked at it like that. So they just take a general interest.
And I think, sorry, carry on, Antonia.
And yeah.
Sorry, I know there's a slight delay, so I'm not trying to kind of interrupt what you're saying at all. Oh, there's always somebody's. I can hear transport behind. And I was going to say, do you think as well, Ben, that for some of us, sometimes it's just easier to talk to a stranger, and if you've got something on your mind, you can kind of offload to somebody that you don't know, because you're still protected, I suppose. Your feelings are protected, and you can walk off and sort of forget that they'll ever know. You'll never see them again,
Well, yes, definitely. And you get that chance, don't you, in a cab ride, whether the taxi driver will start up a conversation, or whether you will, or whether you'll just be quiet, or you hear stories that some cab drivers get annoyed with people striking up conversations because they always ask the same questions, like, "Oh, busy night," that sort of thing, and it kind of puts you off from saying anything to them sometimes, because you've got that in the back of your head.
I talked to one taxi driver so much, he actually let me off.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
He said, I've enjoyed this conversation. I think I was coming back late. I was in Wood Green or somewhere like that. And he ended up saying, I enjoyed this conversation, and let me off. God bless him.
I thought you meant he let you out early. I thought you let you out early.
Give her a freebie just to get a shot of her. And Simon, what was interesting about this particular storyline was that really we hear Ben throughout the whole piece, but it isn't until we actually stop and Ben's the fair's finished that we actually we see Ben. Can you tell us a little bit more why you chose to shoot it in that way?
Well, Ben, shall we let everybody into a little secret?
Yeah, shall we do that?
Yes.
Do you want to say it, or
no? You say it.
I can't drive.
we had a body double.
I was not expecting that. I
was going to say that you were never there in the front of the cab while we were filming that scene.
Oh, look at you!
I think I was
were you in the cab though?
Yeah, I was next to Paul, feeding him his lines.
Right.
And then, but good on Paul. I mean, that whole cab ride is on him, and he did bloody well. Really well.
Did he look in the right place all the time?
He seemed to. I don't know what it was like in the edit, but he seemed to. Yeah, he didn't suddenly look at me like that.
Yeah, no, it looked like he was like looking forward the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
like to where if you were in a cab, like that's where like the cabbie would be.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm shook.
So that was the real cabbie. He was looking at the real cabbie all the time, and and Ben was just like off camera next to him, but you were kind of like in that direction anyway. So yeah, it was good. I mean, he never did look at you once, did he?
No, he didn't.
No.
Simon, did you have any black cab contacts, or was that one of your more expensive scenes?
No. We have a family member who's
that's handy.
a taxi driver. Yeah.
That's
Cool.
good. So was it a freebie or reduced rates?
No, it was a freebie. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Very good.
That was very
No,
cool.
it was a massive favour, and
Especially, I bet if you were to just hire a black cab around London,
Yeah,
it would cost you a pretty penny. But also, if you were to try and get your hands on one as a prop vehicle, it's equally expensive.
Yeah.
So really lucky.
I really kind of felt like the black cab just like tied everything together.
Yeah, I think sorry.
Great for setting the scene, locating a one of the films.
Yeah,
I think Stephen Fry
outside the window as well. Yeah.
I think Stephen Fry owns a cab if you want to borrow one anytime.
All right. Must all write him a letter.
And I think it's interesting that that particular storyline does bookend the film as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, really. And Matt, going back to your character, there are so many choice words that we could probably use for him. As an actor, I know you're not meant to make a judgment call on the person, but what did you think of him, really?
Well, it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, absolutely.
And why not show it happening?
Yeah.
But I think I think when I was younger, there would be a tendency to not really want to do parts like that make you seem not a wholesome human being. But I think as I've got older, the more important thing is the kind of wider message that people like that and scenes like that convey, that life is messy and somehow you've got to navigate it and get through it and see what happens, and it's never quite what you expect. And I think that's an interesting journey to go on, because everyone does.
Absolutely. And I think
it's never going to be a perfect scene, so to speak.
No, and I think probably, and again, Simon and Antonia, you'll probably be able to answer this. It's important to show people's flaws because, you know, as human beings, we are flawed, and you know there are different dimensions to us. So was that an important element as well?
Yeah, I mean, when you watch the first part of it, you think it's going to be a really nice, you know, happy ending, as it was, that, you know, they had an affair and they go off into the sunset together, but it doesn't turn out like that. And I mean, I've had friends that have, you know, had affairs with people and, you know, done the dirty on the other half, and it's weird how they, you know, compartmentalize.
That's it.
So,
yeah.
and then, like, how they justify it and how they just don't talk about it, and then it's just really it fascinates me because the way they see it in one view when it's in the situation, then afterwards how they regret it. And the fact is, you know, I try to make Matt's character seem like really romantically sweet and like, oh yeah, and then what he's really like, because in my head there was a story before and a story after what happens, and the fact is that, you know, you kind of think he's done this before, he's a serial, you know, adulterer, and, you know, his poor wife and stuff like that, but that was the character he was, and he was probably like quite happy to keep going on, you know, like he was never really going to grow.
And the whole bit of mine and Petra's scene in Modern Love takes place in this hotel room, and it is about that hotel room. It's about what happens within it. You arrive thinking that this is the epicenter of a clandestine affair, and it's exciting and physical, but it stays the same room, and it becomes just the stale nothingness.
Yeah, so
that happens in a lot of hotel rooms around the country, and it's a story of those rooms. It's not just those two people. It's a message that life is messy.
I was like, what that stain on the ceiling? Because it's a bit like they're meant to be like, oh, it's all loving and nice, but you're in a room with a big giant stain, and that is basically what it is a big giant stain.
I thought as far as budget hotels went, that was quite a nice one.
It was, yeah.
But still.
Yeah.
Well, in my mind's eye, I pictured that hotel room at the end of Train Spotting. That really kind of 70s horrible decor, and but no, it was Petra who recommended that hotel. She had filmed there before, and it was it was very nice, and I actually stayed there 2 nights.
Yeah.
So. They just didn't have any stain remover though. That's like the one downside. Is like it looks nice, we just don't have any stain remover.
Yeah.
Or they just hadn't looked up. They hadn't noticed.
Yeah. Didn't have a ladder either. That's why it's a nice budget hotel, because they don't spend the money on ladders.
Yeah. I mean, it's only the hotel guests that lying down looking at it anyway. The staff wouldn't really take time to look up when you clean a room. But again, if you looked out of the window in that budget hotel, there's another cracking view of London. I can't remember. I've not seen the film since it came out. Sorry, I know I've been waiting a long time for it, but I can wait a bit longer. I'm using my Amazon Prime trial to rush through The Expanse at the moment. As soon as that's done, I'll get on my Modern Love. But there's a cracking skyline of London out of the window. So even as a budget hotel, that's kind of worth something. It's a great view from just south of Tower Bridge, looking west through London. It's great.
Wow. It's fantastic.
Where you filmed that is kind of similar to the route where you went on the taxi ride. Sort of this.
That's right. Yeah. We went through Bermondsey and stuff like that. So it was sort of the same kind of area that we.
You should do a little PDF map of journeys around Modern Love to accompany an online download.
Like a little walking tour. Or like a thing people could you could turn it into a walking tour, and then people could do it on a first date. It's like that's all you could do in lockdown, is go for walks with people.
And you can bring them along with your iPhone. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to talk to someone face to face. You could just Instagram your journey as you're going along and tag the person you're on a date with in your stories, and then they could share it. There you go, boost your following at the same time. That's good.
All right, I'm going to patent that now. Somebody else steals that idea.
That's fine, as long as I get to kind of do like the first social media post on it. It's all fine. There you go. That's the deal.
Matt, did you see your character as a bit of an idealist as well? But then as soon as the reality sets in, it's
there's a fantasy element involved in that storyline where you can't believe your luck, and then you think you can make that luck into a permanent reality, but you don't have the power, or you don't have the guts. There's a fantasist. It's a fantasy idea.
Part of his sort of personality, really. And
somebody who can't believe their luck has come true.
Yeah. And Simon, but just going back to the storyline, the taxi driver storyline with Ben. So sound wise, then, how did you record that? Incidentally,
that was all recorded within that taxi cab.
You were all sort of sat enclosed in that kind of,
So everything was recorded as we were driving along. So we did do Ben's tracks separately. I think I think it was the actual track that we recorded at the time of those shots, or that one shot, because I try to get everything within kind of like 1 or 2 shots. Yeah, it was, we didn't have to do much in post. We had some very good sound recordists on this film, and so a lot of the dialogue we didn't need to ADR. We just were able to, we got some really good clean sound. It was kind of interesting with Matt's story, because we had radio mics and we had the boom, and it was a combination of using both, because the only one thing with the radio mics was they kept catching the ruffle of the sheets, the bed sheets. So when anybody moved, but we had it on the boom mic as well. So I mean, the sound recorders did an amazing job. Very, very lucky to find these guys who got some really good sounds on the day.
And also with the Matt's scene as well, you were able to use kind of different types of camera angles as well, which I thought was quite clever. Yeah,
though I was my strategy for that shoot was to try and get things done in long takes. So I think the scene in the bed was the most challenging, because originally in the script there was a lot of movement. They were actually going to get dressed in the middle of this, and it was just space-wise, there really wasn't enough room for it.
Yeah, it was tiny. Yeah.
So
but I think that's a good filmmaking mantra. You walk into a room and your plans change based on the dimensions of it. You made that decision pretty quickly. Like, no, we can't do that. We're going to do it like this. And it worked. Yeah,
it worked out really well. Yeah.
Yeah, we were not delayed. everything worked as it should have, even though it wasn't what was originally written in the script. It was good.
Yeah.
And you
have to be adapted. Simon. That's all right. I'm just saying that it's something that I've learned over the years, is that you have to be adaptive to the scene. I mean, come in with a plan, but don't be afraid to change the plan if things go wrong. I mean, I did a shoot years ago with Clive Ashenden and a few other people. It was a trailer for a horror anthology film, and we had this massive script, loads of shots, lots of build up, and we had to shoot it in one day, and most of that day was wasted shooting in like a forest area. And so we literally had like an afternoon and an evening to shoot all this stuff, and Clive went away and said, let me just rewrite this, and he rewrote it, and it worked really well. And I think all that other stuff that we had, it was fine that we lost it. It still worked. And so I've, even though before that point I had on other shoots I've been adapted, but that really showed to me that at the end of the day you have all these plans, but sometimes you have to throw them out the window and go with what you've got.
Yeah, and interesting that you talk about those angles in that room, Claire, because there weren't many to find in such a small space. I think Simon did a great job spotting those.
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly enough, Ben and Leila, your scene partners, you didn't know them, so you didn't really have to build up a relationship beforehand. But Matt, your scenes are with somebody that you've been having this affair with. Did you know her before, or did you just meet each other and then just sort of discuss how you were going to play it out, really?
I don't think we had a read-through beforehand, did we?
No, we didn't know.
No, so I just met Petra straight on the shoot, and she was lovely. You could tell that she'd done it before. I read recently that she's not acting anymore. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, she's retired from acting.
Oh, that's a shame. But but she knew what she was doing. She was great to work with, and I had a very nice time.
Yeah,
in bed with a stranger.
It's a hard day at the office. so to speak.
Yeah, sometimes my parents used to say to me, they're like, what did you do today? And I was like, spent the whole day in bed with a stranger, or I just spent the day snogging someone I just met. And they were like, right, okay. That's how acting goes sometimes. I can't give you a nice story because sometimes that's literally what I did all day.
It's all there's nothing quite like show business, is there, folks? And Simon, can I ask you a little bit more? We haven't really spoken about the casting process, and you know how basically you felt and how you chose each person. I mean, okay, Antonia kind of wrote, you know, Matt's scenes with Matt in mind, but you know, what was your casting process?
My casting process on this one was all recommendations. So and a combination of people I had worked with before. So Leila I'd worked with before, Ben I'd worked with before, Matt I'd seen his work and I wanted to work with him. Petra was recommended to me by another acting friend who had worked with her on a film called My Guardian Angel, which is also on Amazon Prime. There you go, free plug. And it was just like that. And also I had I think Vari actually contacted me via Facebook and asked if there was any roles, and you know, I said yes, there is. And Liv, again, I knew through seeing her work on Brainhound, and Keith had worked with her. I mean, Keith actually, you know, recommended quite a few people for this shoot, and lots of people did, and it was just great because I didn't have a very good experience of casting on my first feature, to tell the truth. It was very tough, and I got some good people, and I think I made some compromises with our roles, which I shouldn't have done. But you know, I don't, you know. But it was a lesson learned. So on this one, I was very lucky. I got to work with a lot of people who were great, and you know, it was really enjoyable. There was nobody on this shoot that I never went, oh, well, I don't want to work with them again.
But for you guys as well as actors, I'll put the question to Leila first. You know, if you're working with somebody that you already know that's a director, you've got that trust there. That all of a sudden just makes, I would think, simplifies matters sort of greatly, really.
It does definitely make things like a lot easier because I had worked with Simon before. So like coming onto set, well, I say set, the bar that we shot on location, you kind of already got like an established rhythm. So you have a really, like I say, a solid idea about, you know, what's going to happen, what the process is going to be. And it's just a lot easier, I feel, sometimes to get stuff done, because you can get to kind of the more difficult or honest questions quicker. Like I remember when we were shooting outside, there was this street lamp that just kept getting in the way. I don't know if you remember that, Simon.
I do remember this. Yes.
There was a street lamp, and it wasn't right in the middle. It was like slightly offside. So Simon had to keep going, like, guys, we're gonna have to do it again. I want to move the street lamp, and we were like, okay. And because I've worked with Simon beforehand, I know that it's actually kind of like it is a problem with the street lamp, and he is just trying to get shots. Whereas like sometimes like I have had previous roles where like the directors have just been like, or the producer or somebody's just been like, no, I just wanted to see you guys do it again. And it's like, okay, fair. But yeah, no, so I definitely think it makes it easier. And I get kind of quite nervous about things. So having a relationship with at least one person that's in the cast or the crew like does help me kind of quite a bit. Yeah. I think it kind of gives you like a starting point to kind of like launch yourself from, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And Ben, for you, because you know Simon, if you've got any ideas about your character, any sort of specifics really, you can go to him and go, look, do you mind if we try this? And you've got that freedom really.
Yeah, and sort of coming up with a costume as well, and sort of showing Simon, is this okay? I think I brought another couple of T-shirts or whatever with me or whatever, and said to him that, is this all right? I didn't want to come. I don't know what a cliche taxi driver is, but I didn't want to look to be a typical taxi driver. I suppose I thought we'd just, bring character to it. Don't just turn up as a normal sort of cabbie or whatever. And then I knew that I knew Simon knew that I couldn't drive. So obviously taxi drivers are out in future. But
at least it's ticked off the list.
Exactly. But I knew all of a sudden Simon wasn't going to say, look, I know you can't drive, but could you give it a go? I knew he wasn't going to do that because I knew we had a real taxi driver on hand. So
I know exactly what that feels like. I did some extra work a few years ago, and I had somebody come up. I had a third AD come up to me and asked me to use one of those, fir tree baggers.
Right.
You see, like train stations, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, you're joking? I've never used one in my life. Why do you think? Why do you think I could do it?
Yeah.
I actually did another project where they said to the actor that I was doing a scene with, like, look, we know you can't drive, but can you just like drive the car straight down the road? And,
that's highly illegal.
And I was like, I was literally like, what? And I was like, I don't have to be in the car, do they? And they were like, no, you need to be in the car. And I was like, oh god.
And I've actually played. Sorry,
Go, Ben.
I was just going to say I've actually played characters before who have to drive as well. So it's not a well, it is a negative thing, but you can get away with it obviously because it's film. So I've done a couple of shots where I've been pushed into shot, into the camera view as though I'm driving, and it works okay,
Oh, I did a job, Simon, with I can't remember her name now, but she's in Modern Love. I did a commercial job where I had to pretend to drive a car, and she was in the passenger seat next to me, and we met.
Was that
at the end of 2019?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Pretending to drive in cars reminded me of that.
Well, if you remember what her name is, because I would say what story she's in, but you've not seen the film yet. So
she has dark hair. She's American or Canadian.
Oh, Barbara Barnes?
Nope.
No.
Oh.
It's not Scottish.
No.
She's not Scottish, is she?
No.
No. Oh, okay.
She has long dark hair.
Straight, curly.
No, we're not going to get it.
The only person I know in the film is Ari, and that's it.
This is in 2019. I'm amazed I can remember anything about the scene I shot in Modern Love.
You're remembering quite a lot. I mean, I'm quite impressed, to be honest with you. I mean, Matt, this probably isn't a question for you, but Ben and Leila, having seen the film, what are your thoughts about it? And completely exclude you, Matt, because you haven't even bothered to watch it because you'd rather watch something else first.
It's on my list.
I think for a lot of us that have watched the film, it's not just a love. It's not just kind of a story of love between people and relationships and friendships, but it's a love letter to London as well. And is that something that you kind of got from it too?
I actually really liked how much the film showcased London, and I think that was just because something I didn't clock it was going to do that, if that makes sense. So I watched it, and then what I was actually doing was I rewatched it, and then I was like, right, where was this? Where was that? Because obviously I know when my film was shot, but I was actually kind of like going around trying to figure everything out. So for me, that was quite a nice surprise. But I just think that it's a very good example, like overall, of just kind of, dating and love and relationships in London still. Like legit, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Like, you've still got people on the apps, you know, you've still got people that are struggling to communicate. You've still got people that are the nicest people in the world, but they're still not finding, you know, the right person, the right relationship.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're saying there is that the storylines are relatable, aren't they, really?
Yeah, that would be the correct word right there. Yeah, they are very relatable.
That's all right. I've done this job for a while.
I've just literally like, my day job, it just like has I literally, before I came on here, I was like, I need to switch the brain off work. I need to change the brain to like film gear.
Actress mode now.
Yeah, no, it's definitely very relatable. And I think kind of, if you were ever to meet any of those the characters in the film in real life, you know, you could quite easily build a good rapport with them and have a good conversation with them, or be able to say to at least, you know, a couple of them, like, yeah, no, me too, no, hey, I've been through that as well, or I've been in a similar situation.
Definitely. I mean, Simon, Antonia, really, was there a particular message that you wanted to get across by making Modern Love?
No. Well, no, it wasn't that. It was the whole relatability. I mean, as you said, the relatability aspect. I didn't want it to be kind of like a Hollywood story.
Well, it's funny about like what we found lately, what people are saying, they're reading the film differently to how we might have half intended it or thought of it. It's like I hadn't seen Leila's story in its entirety. I purposely didn't see some shorts, which is really hard with you. And I was saying, like, so they see the two characters that you and Kane,
yeah.
That you wasn't just that you were socially inept or anything like that, but I thought, I don't know why, but I read it that he might have had some sort of autism, just because that sort of, it's just that, so it doesn't say it, but it's just somehow I read it this way. I mean, I might watch it again and come think differently. But like, you had to be.
And so it's interesting you say that, because actually when we were filming it, like, me and Kane did actually have that conversation about our characters. We're like, you know, do you think that there's something else in there, or is there kind of, you know, a reason why that they find like interacting quite difficult? You know, why they find kind of comfort in having the screens there. Yeah. So is it just that, you know, it's kind of, you know, new romance, first dating, meeting up for the first time, or is there something else there? So yeah, no, it's quite interesting how you said that.
Well, I had an interesting comment today about Ben's character, about Derek the cabbie. One person actually thought that Paul was talking. She thought she was actually he was talking to Bowie.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I never thought of that.
Oh wow!
No, definitely would have been.
What a testament to your acting, Ben.
There you go. Still in here. I think what I liked, it was nice watching the film as almost just a viewer, because you're only in kind of one story. It's great to just watch it as a member of the public almost. And the thing without blowing smoke, blah blah blah, I think all the stories worked.
Yeah, they do, definitely.
You know, they're all different styles, and I mean, I think there was one that finished fairly abruptly, but it still worked, if you know what I mean. As you said, you didn't want to make it Hollywood. You didn't want to have particularly a beginning, middle, and an end. It was kind of just at that moment, that story at that moment, if you see what I mean.
What's like people, they pick up on different stories. Like my mother, for instance, she all the stories, she just focuses. I really like Keith's one. Like, yeah, it's a good story. What about the ones I wrote? Thanks.
I think what's clever with that particular storyline is that one is interwoven, and it kind of it ties all this kind of stories together a little bit, doesn't it? Really, does that mean?
Yeah. It's the glue. It's the story that binds all the other stories.
Well, I kind of said I didn't know how it was going to work. I didn't argue it because he was like, "Oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do," and I'm like, "Never really seen that before." And then, you know, it did work, but as you told me, I'm like, "What?" I don't know if people would read it like, "Oh, is that finished now?" Like that's the end of that storyline. but because it was coming in and out sort of thing, it did really work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I mean, it's if you ever watch horror anthologies, they tend to have a story that joins up the others. I mean, you get like the straight ones where it's literally, you know, story, end, and then you get the ones that it weaves in.
Oh, what was it, that thing we had the idea about, the taxi seems to tie the stories together unintentionally. So like Ben's character, you killed someone's
we jokingly said in Three Little Words, Phil's character, when he's talking about when his girlfriend gets run down by a taxi cab, and which at the time I wrote it, I had no idea we were going to do a story in a taxi cab. And so he goes, "Was that Derek?" and of course, as well in the animation, you know, you see a taxi cab and Jason drew you driving the taxi cab.
The voice that you said, "Oh, there he goes, killing again."
And because the film is an amalgamation of the short stories, I'm going to put this question to Matt first. As actors, because you're only working with a small time frame to work with, you haven't got the beauty of a feature film for us to go on a big journey with the character. Is there more pressure in a short amount of time to get an audience's attention and gain their kind of trust and interest in the character? You haven't got so much time to build upon that, have you?
I think there is a pressure, but it's more of the director's pressure, not the actors or whoever's managing the schedule. Yeah. I think as an actor, you whether it's a 10 quid film or a $100 million film, you can only do what you are directed to do or is written in the script. You can only do what's there. So I didn't feel that kind of pressure. But also going back to what you were talking about, working with people that you know, that kind of ease of working and the freedom to discuss ideas and talk about how you might find things easier helps get things done quickly and eases that kind of pressure if it does exist. So no, I felt like I felt on lots of what essentially was a short film, but a companion piece to all the other short films. That you've got to get it done. You've got to work hard, and it is hard work when you're doing these things. When you've got a budget, it's somehow easier because you get these little breaks. You get pizzas delivered, and actually we did get pizzas, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
I think we did get pizzas. But in between the pizzas, you get Haribo. And somehow those little things make them easier. But on a low budget and a tight schedule, it's hard work. And as long as you arrive on day one knowing that it's going to be hard work and get ready for a long day, you get it done. Yeah,
absolutely. Leila, what are your feelings?
I think like as long as you have to be confident with your character. And you have to know, like, you know, how you're going to portray them. And as long as you're confident in, you know, what you're doing and how you're doing it, which is like, it goes back to kind of like, you know, knowing Simon previously, you know, you can have those conversations. So when you rock up on set, knowing it's going to be a long day or a hard day, you're like, right, I know what I'm doing. I'm good to go. Let's go. And you can then effectively put the trust in them that they're going to convey that additional information. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that additional information you get from a longer piece.
Yeah. And Ben, for you?
Yeah, well, I could be wrong here, Simon, but I'm not sure. Did you send everyone the full script or just their scenes?
Just the scenes. There was never
That's what I remember.
A full feature script. They were it was more or less, they were written and then they were shot and then they were edited. Yeah. And we did it like that. So we did it bit by bit. So there was never like, this is the full script.
Yeah, which is, again, it kind of keeps the pressure off slightly because you know you're just got to deal with your scene. You haven't got to think about continuity of, what did I do I wasn't in the previous scene. It's just this, and that's all you've got to concentrate on. So, and it's that thing as what Simon said about, when you go to a location, for instance, you can't really set stuff in stone. And I guess that's the same as an actor. And I guess the other actors would agree that, okay, you can do a bit of planning at home, but it's a mistake to set too much in stone, because all of a sudden you might get asked to change something. And if you're too rigid on what you've already planned, it's difficult to move away from that, possibly. If you start
I think if you plan, you can do your backstory, and then you have to kind of do all your research and then kind of let it go, so you can be free to be and perform and do what you need to do in the moment, really.
You can't suddenly say, oh, I'm going to look to the left here, or whatever,
Also, we come to the right.
more organic than that, if I can use that word.
I have a question for Matt. It's kind of concerning that. So the first night of filming, because we kind of filmed it backwards, so the breakup we shot first. And so when I came up to you and I said, is it all right if Petra actually slaps you, what did you actually think?
The room is so small that you couldn't fake it. So yeah, you know, if it was a 6 meter room and the camera was 5.9 meters away and you said she's going to slap you, I would think Simon hates me. Simon wants me to get slapped. but in a room that small, you kind of look around and think, yeah, you can't fake this. It's just got to happen, and it's just a slap, you know.
So I have to say, I mean, having seen
it allows you to really say the lines to deserve the slap.
Well, I mean, I was really happy you were game for it, but I must admit, having looked at some of the takes, I think she caught you unawares a couple of times, because there was a couple of takes where you looked like fucking hell.
Fortunately, I don't recall.
Oh, okay.
and I think partly that is to do with the impending terror of being a father. That isn't my lasting memory from the end of 2015.
Well, it's kind of mine, just because I got to see every take of it. Every time I was like, ooh. It was only a 2-day shoot, so I can't imagine we spent too long on the slapping. Oh no,
but probably just long enough.
Yeah.
And then he said, "I'll give you the other cheek."
Hit me on the other side to even it out a little bit.
Can we move the camera?
That's modern love too. You've talked about the porn version, haven't you, Simon? Well, we're kind of closely approaching the hour, so what I'd like to ask you all before we disappear for the evening is if you can let us know a lasting memory and what you took away with you from working on the film. If I can put that to Leila first, please.
Oh heck, I think it was probably the fact that I could do something that I originally didn't feel comfortable doing. I'd never done anything that was silent beforehand. And I think kind of like from watching it back, I was like, I feel like I was able to convey non-verbally what I would have normally been able to convey with words, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that little challenge right there.
Fantastic. Ben, for you, what will you take away with you?
Well,
apart from a driving license.
Well,
license.
It was actually inspiring working with Paul, actually, because he is a songwriter and he's in bands and makes his own music, and I write songs as well, and he actually inspired me to have a look at my songs again and do something about it. So that's the lasting thing I've got from it, which was lovely. Yeah.
That is really lovely. Matt, for you, what will you take away with you, other than the impending birth of your first child?
Well, I think coupled with that, it's the willingness to show up and do your best, even though you may have other pressing matters to attend. Yeah. I think that when you agree to a project that you do your best to get there and get it done and do it to the best of your ability, and try and forget all the other stresses that you have as an actor, as a performer, that it is an opportunity to cast those things aside and really get into a part and be free.
Yeah. And when you're committed, you're committed.
Yeah, once you sign the contract.
Yeah, you're Antonia, I should put the same question to you.
Just the sort of surrealness of you write something that comes to life. And it's sort of like, it's personified into actual person, not just in your head. It still kind of throws me, really.
It's amazing. It's amazing to think that, the words that you've put down and you see somebody actually bring them to life.
Well, it's like you kind of make them into a puppet in a really sick-minded way.
and Simon, we will have the last word from you, sir, as the director.
Oh, okay. Well, just the opportunity to work with all these great people and have the mic drop on you. We
heard you. You're all right. Opportunity to work with some great people.
I'm just going to hold it. But no, it was such a great pleasure to work with all the actors who are with us today and everybody else who appeared in the film. And it was so much fun. And, even if it was a little bit stressful at times, it was, it's just, I look back on each one and I was just, each one was such a joy to do. And, so it was just, as I say, it was just a great experience working with everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you. Simon, Antonia, Matt, Leila, Ben, and I shall say cheerio as well. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Congratulations with the film, and you can watch Modern Love on Amazon Prime now.
Yes.
Take care. Bye all.
Bye now. Bye.
We're still